A slice of heaven. That's how U.S. Consul General Leandro Rizzuto Jr. describes Bermuda as he settles into his new role. He's traveled the world, but this is his first time in Bermuda, and he is duly impressed. Mr. Rizzuto sat down with Bermuda Broadcasting for his first interview on island and covered a range of topics, including the public protests that preceded his arrival. A lifetime in business has given him a thick skin. He is the son of Leandro Rizzuto, the billionaire founder of Conair Corporation, one of the world's largest privately held health and beauty and small appliances company. Conair manufactures products under household names such as Cuisinart, Interplaque, Conair Pro, Pollenex, Thinner, Babyless, and Waring, to name just a few. For over 30 years, Mr. Rizzuto Jr. helped expand Conair and introduced more than 1,000 new products. He told us he plans to utilize his business acumen in his new role, in which he will be expected to strengthen ties between Bermuda and the United States. Mr. Rizzuto, who was appointed by President Trump, came to our studios with his wife Denise. Here's our exclusive interview. So you moved to Bermuda only a few weeks ago, so obviously it's a very new thing, but how has your transition gone so far?
I would say fantastic. The people have been just overwhelmingly pleasant and embracing. The place is beautiful. It's just amazing to be here in this slice of heaven to share it with the Bermudians.
And so you have recently moved here from South Florida, so the climate's not that different.
Correct, very similar. I would say the humidity might be just slightly less.
Right.
But it's very similar.
Right, right. So had you been to Bermuda before?
No.
Very first time?
I've traveled the world many times over, and it was 99% for family business.
Right.
And unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to get here and enjoy this earlier in my life.
So your initial impressions of the island, I think you've already addressed that, but just in going around and just your general impressions.
It's quite impressive, and it's very nice to see the pride of the people, and it's clearly reflected when you're driving around the country. All the different properties, whether it's a small house or a large house, all the yards are manicured and clean and well taken care of, and it's a reflection of the people, and like I said, the pride, and truly nice to see.
So you have 3 children.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any family members actually came with you to Bermuda, or are they still living overseas?
So we have adult children, three girls, 26, 28, and 29. So they're 2 live in Florida, 1 is up in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Our youngest, who's married, she's going to have a baby. She's due on the 12th of this month. So it's very exciting time for her and for us.
Yes, absolutely. So do any of your children work for the business? Are they in Stamford?
Yes.
Yes?
They all do.
They all 3?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is very nice.
So like myself, they grew up in the business, and they just became quite enthusiastic by being a part of it. They were never pushed to have to go and be told to go. They just really gravitated to it and very much enjoy it.
Right, right. So the role of the U.S. Consul General, as you know, is to protect U.S. citizens and strengthening the ties between the U.S. and Bermuda economically, and from numerous immigration, numerous issues. Again, you've only been here for a short time, but how might you strengthen ties between our 2 countries?
Well, it's a number of ways, and I bring perhaps a different background, not being a typical political background or government background, but more of a business individual. Mm-hmm. And I've done this in other areas where I've got into positions bringing a unique set of business acumen and skills to the position. And I believe there's so much opportunity to further develop here, and relationship-wise. Obviously, the relationship goes back 400 years and has been a very valuable one to all the countries involved. So it's something that I look forward to complementing and contributing further than my predecessors.
What do you see the key differences between corporate negotiation and international diplomacy?
Well, corporate quite often is more demanding in respect to timelines, where in diplomacy you're going to have perhaps a longer process. However, quite often the objectives are the same, and the process is quite similar also. So I've traveled the world, been in countless countries and trade shows and customers and factories. So that does not happen without diplomacy. So I do believe there's a benefit of my past that will complement my future and our future here. Right.
So I guess a natural add-on to that would be, do you have political aspirations?
So my thought was very specific in respect to diplomacy. And I don't know what my future interests will be, but I truly wanted to be involved in a position like this, that I could contribute and help initiatives and relations, and at the same time not be in the cat and dog fight that quite often occurs in politics.
And this is a more specific question. There's a growing controversy in the U.S. about postal or absentee ballots ahead of the November presidential election. Do you have any message for American voters living here in Bermuda about that?
Yeah, I think the voting system and process is one that should have the utmost respect and taken, completely serious. So to listen to perhaps some of the dialogue that has passed over the last 10 years in respect to the necessity to have an ID or not have an ID, and to just blindly submit a ballot, this is something that we should protect foremost as a citizen in the U.S. and around the world.
So Conair is a true American success story. In reading about the company and the evolution of your company, started in 1959, of course, by your grandfather and father. Can you tell us how your family built such an empire?
Hard work and focus, foremost. The company started with a $200 investment. And I remember as a young child, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it now because there might be a labor law violation, but about the age of 5 years old, I was taking hair rollers and putting them into a paper tray and feeding the paper tray into a shrink wrap machine. And that was the original product of the company that my grandfather invented, a wire hair roller. And I grew up in a business that, and culture that hard work and dedication and focus was paramount. And as I mentioned about my daughters earlier, I never had to be told to go to work. It was something that I actually strived towards. And any free time I had in my youth, I always took advantage to go into the factory or the warehouse or the office and thoroughly enjoyed that. Right. And that's something that really I try to lead by example and teach others to stay focused, because what's most important quite often where you have a business failure or a career failure is people going into too many different areas. And if there's something that you're passionate about, stay focused. And if there's something that you want to succeed at, stay focused. But when you go into too many areas, that quite often is when you're going to dilute the result.
It's a very competitive area, but you have maintained a very large stake, a very large majority of the market. And I know that you've also obtained a number of patents and different things. So, I mean, Conair has obviously stayed on the edge of technology. And it's funny, I read about, was it called the Yellow Bird, the original?
Yes.
I remember that blow dryer, and I remember how unique it was at that point. And ingenuity and staying ahead of the curve. I mean, how, again, with the competition in the market, have you been able to stay on top of it?
So, as you mentioned, the development of technologies, creativity, value, positioning, giving people what they want at a fair price and a good product is really the cornerstone of our business. We try to really deliver the value and the technology, which equals the performance of the products, and integrity, so the life of the products. And that has been a key to our success.
You were with the company for 3 decades, from what I read.
At the minimum.
At the minimum, right?
I'm 58. I claim that it's 53 years that I've been in the business.
Right. So what has been the key to your personal success with the company?
Again, there was never a day, regardless where I was in the world or how many hours in that day I put in, that I considered it work. It was always a passion and love. And having the focus on the business, you become an expert, obviously, in that business and in that field. And at the same time, it's important to understand that you could be in business and respect your competitors. So myself, I was in a number of industry associations, and my peers elevated me ultimately to president and chairman of those associations. And it was the mutual respect that we had for each other and how we collaborated and worked together, quite often for the benefit of the industry, not for any one personal company. And to me, that was the greatest sign of endorsement that you can have, by your own competition.
Stepping back a little bit, President Trump in 2018 nominated you to be the ambassador to Barbados. However, 2 years later, you were appointed here as U.S. Consul General in Bermuda. Can you explain what occurred?
Isn't that great? How lucky am I, right? I feel bad for Barbados, for the people of Barbados, and my colleagues in Barbados. And I also was never in Barbados. Let me clarify that. But how lucky am I that here I am today? So during the presidential campaign, I supported the president. And I had a very simple position, because you always wound up in these circles where politics comes up in the conversation. And as eloquent as you try and be, ultimately there's emotions and tensions that escalate. And I took a very straightforward position. And my position was, I want to see a business leader have the opportunity to do the job. Forget about what party this person is or isn't. Forget about you like the person, you don't like the person. Let's give a business guy or woman a chance to do the job. And that was what fueled my passion and support for the president. I met him years earlier. I wasn't overly, close with him. We knew each other from the New York area. We always said hello to each other when we were in the same room. And I had a respect for his accomplishments, and ultimately felt that a business guy could do a fantastic job and accomplish a lot. And likewise, we gave everybody else a chance to do the job, so why not a business guy to do the job? My support for the president during the campaign ultimately caused me some difficulty within the Senate, because at the time he was, everybody was trying to take shots at him. And I went on social media and was following him and retweeted some nonsense that ultimately a couple of the senators took offense by. They made up with the president, but stayed mad at me. And that's okay, because again, as the life would have it, here I am in Bermuda instead of Barbados, which is fantastic.
Right.
So I had a tremendous support in the Senate, but the way the process works, any one senator could put a block on a candidate for an appointment position, and then ultimately you're stalemated.
Right.
The president remains loyal and a believer in what he felt I could deliver in a capacity. So he continued to identify a spot that he could put me in, and did. So I'm very proud by that.
So ultimately, was it 2 senators that perhaps were involved in the tweets that were also on the committee. Were involved in.
They don't even need to be on the committee.
Right.
Any one senator could block a candidate,
Right.
a nominee.
Right. Do you believe that was unfair?
You know, I'm a big boy, so if that's how they felt, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, my interest was, fortunately, I'm in a position in my life that I could give back more, and that's what I wanted to do, and I'm here, so I'm incredibly grateful, and also consider it to be the work of God, mm-hmm. and I do believe in intervention. That, you know, here I am, which is just a fantastic place. So I think it all worked out to be better than we even thought.
So people in Bermuda were aware of the tweets and the issues that occurred, and so we had some protests here revolving around Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the things they'd heard. Were you aware of those concerns?
I was aware. I considered it to be unfortunate that,
right.
they chose to include me in this protest.
Right.
And the amazing part, not being an expert, whether then or now yet on Bermuda, I hope to be, but if there's 64,000 people, how they got 90-something thousand signatures is amazing to me. But more important, even if it was only one signature, not a single person called me up and said, hey, you know, could you give us some background? Could you give us some fact? Can you give us an explanation? Which I would be happy to do. Mm-hmm. But I have thick skin. I don't hold it against the people. And my interest is, let's put the nonsense behind us and go forward. And like I said, let's make this a better place than it already is and complement what has already been done.
So what would you like to tell those people that signed that petition or that were marching about it? You know, I mean, what would you like to say to them?
Exactly that. Again, I have no ill regard of feelings. You know, I would hope that people would be more responsible and do the homework in respect to what they're protesting about. And like I said, it's certainly if I became part of their target, then reach out and say, get the explanation and get the facts. Because I think most people ultimately, I wind up having very good relationships with. I try to be a people person, mm-hmm. and my background, I believe, has tremendous accomplishments and accolades. So it really, I think once people understand that, they would appreciate what my accomplishments have been and what I can bring to Bermuda.
So when you referred to those tweets, you said some, I don't want to paraphrase, but silly tweets or things that, you know, I mean, sometimes it's easy just to retweet something, but...
What's funny is, when we were raising our children, we always told them, be mindful of what you put in writing or put out there because it will follow you. Mm-hmm. And he always was against social media for the children growing up. So when this happened, we all said, see, how you just press click and share something is out there for everyone to view.
I was truly blinded, and
yeah.
My emotions perhaps were elevated at the time, because the way I like to tell the story was that you had 16 guys on stage taking shots at someone that really, to me, may go down in history as one of the most patriotic presidents that America has ever had, mm-hmm. and really wanted to do a good job and come and do it. And you had 16 guys taking shots, everybody including the Pope. If you recall, even the Pope said, what do you have a wall for? Although there's a 30-foot wall around the Vatican, right? And not to debate the history, but I just wish people would have, perhaps been more embracing to what the president truly wanted to contribute to the country and why he was running.
Yes.
Why he's so passionate.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, elections are obviously a very emotive time, and people have very strong opinions, and everybody is kind of expressing.
Even to this day, you don't have to like the guy. Then I know probably more or less you could say 50% say they do and 50% say they don't. But just understand, this is someone that comes to work every day that's fighting for America, that's trying to help the police, trying to help the emergency workers, trying to help the military, trying to help the vets. Really, each day, his heart on his sleeve, showing his passion to making America better. And does he do everything right? Who does? Right? But I believe his intentions 100% of the time are on trying to make America a better place for the people of America and for the rest of the world. Because the stronger America is, the more they can help the other countries and other people around the world.
So just going back quickly to the protest, did that make you consider in reading this, well, maybe we don't want to go to Bermuda? Did you ever have that thought? Or did you think I'm going to come here and everything will be all right?
I was a believer that it was more hype and just getting caught up for the moment, and it didn't dilute our enthusiasm or cause any apprehension to come here.
Obviously, as we discussed briefly, the protest about your appointment also came during the rising of the Black Lives Matter movement, which has just been unbelievable. I think the New York Times said it's one of the biggest movements in a short amount of time in the time of history, really. And the first March here, even Bermuda was about 11% of our population, about 7,000 people in the actual Black Lives Matter march. What are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement and, again, the expansive protests involving millions of people worldwide?
May I say something?
Of course.
In being in the beauty business,
Right.
we never viewed color. People are people. And in that industry, everyone gets along, and the trade shows are incredible. We have friends of many different ethnic backgrounds, and our children grew up having friends of many different cultures and backgrounds. So for us, we can't really see where it's coming from, and I believe that it's possibly motivated by something else, because it's really not that way back in the States. It's targeted to a few areas.
There's clearly, I believe, sincere intentions by many, and perhaps also by many another agenda, right? So I could tell you that I'm very passionate as have an Italian heritage, and as an Italian American, and it kills me to see them knocking over Columbus statues, right? So. Listen, if we're going to attack statues, where do we go to the Museum of History and remove the cavemen? Where do you start? Where do you end?
And that to
right?
me is not Black Lives Matters. That is something motivated by something totally different.
So,
Right.
I just wish the agendas would stay focused, and clearly they're embraced by so many. It's not a black only focus. Clearly, there's many whites that are involved, helping and supporting, but the key is getting the message out there in a focused way. And there should be zero tolerance when it comes to destruction.
It derailed.
and taking advantage of people's properties, and the violence that has occurred and the deaths that have occurred. That's really. Unfortunately, it taints it for everybody, and put such a bad cast on it.
What do you think, however, the murder of George Floyd was very difficult to watch on video by the police
Of course,
officers.
it was terrible.
Absolutely horrible. And when you turn on to any news station, there's murders every day of every person in skin color. And this horrific that it was captured, and it was just horrible. But I still do not think that that's a way to honor someone's name. Some of the protests were very, very calm and peaceful and remembering him. But the other ones have escalated, and this is something that has totally derailed our focus.
And quite frankly, in many cases, you're taking advantage of his
Memory and loss.
demise, and
Yes.
unfortunate passing.
Someone's taking advantage of it.
Right. Okay, well, let's go on to the coronavirus. The coronavirus. So Bermuda's done a great job at handling the pandemic with the use of masks and social distancing and a lot of testing. And of course, we're a small country, but so far so good. And the U.S. has been struggling to contain the virus, and obviously a much bigger area. But do you feel the U.S. could have done a better job at containing COVID-19?
I think the U.S., as many countries, has been challenged in many ways, starting with the onset of the virus. So the U.S. has responded tremendously to be at, I believe the current number is about 60 million tests that tested and exist 4 months ago, and you got 60 million completed already. To shut down the flights, to shut down the country, these are moves that really never happened before.
Yeah.
And to now, in retrospect, say, well, you could have did it a day earlier, you could have did this, or you could, that's really unfair. You had tremendous, bold decisions that were taken that were for the best interests of everybody, and they were criticized when they were made, right? So is it possible to do anything better? Of course. But what was accomplished is truly amazing. 60 million tests is incredible. And I think there are about 800,000 going up to a million tests a week. Or is it a day? Excuse me, just recalling out the material I was reading recently. But it's just tremendous numbers. In respect to Bermuda, I applaud the program that they employed. Is it a little bit inconvenient? Absolutely. Is it for the best interest of everybody? Absolutely. Did we take a COVID test before we arrived? Absolutely. We went online, we filled out the form, we paid the fee, we got the authorization travel number, arrived, had our temperature taken, tests taken again, and over the 2 weeks, I think it was 3 or 4 more tests, right? So to be here in Bermuda, the people have to be extremely comfortable and happy that basically have no cases, in the country. And the process when a test comes back positive of tracking and tracing and everything else is I think Bermuda is doing a tremendous job that the rest of the world really should zero in on.
I mean, obviously it was something that nobody had ever dealt with in their lifetimes with the pandemic, and just it's been surreal period of time for everybody. But could the administration, the current administration, maybe have put more guidance from the top so that governors and mayors weren't trying to figure it out as it filtered out, which has sort of increased the spread across the United States?
So
leadership from the top.
In fairness, remember the structure of the U.S. The governors control their states. And when the governors are told to do something, they immediately push back. When the result isn't so good, they say, well, Washington should have did more. So when you do more, you're criticized. When you do less, you're criticized. I believe what the administration has executed and accomplished is just tremendous. Given the field of play and what we had to deal with, the results have been quite significant. Now, are we happy with the numbers? Of course, we want the numbers to improve and we want to eradicate this. But at the same time, look at the history of the pharmaceutical companies on drugs and 15 and 20-year process to get a drug approved. And we're going to have a number of different vaccinations realistically within a 12-month period. So, and again, that only became possible by the direction of the administration, by saying, hey, we're not going to accept 20 years and we can't wait 20 years. So we're going to change the policies effective immediately and encourage these companies to work on the vaccinations. Because quite frankly, if these drug companies knew that they had a 20-year process, how many of them still would have worked on the vaccination?
Right.
So the result of the administration caused literally hundreds of companies around the world to say, hey, let's see how we could help and let's come up with a vaccination.
So I think we already addressed it, but do you believe President Trump has a good chance of being reelected in November?
I do.
I do also.
I truly do. I believe it's strange times and has been strange times, but quite often, and perhaps even here in Bermuda, if you say you like the guy, you know, you're a little bit fearful because there's such strong emotion both ways, right?
Yes.
But there's what's called the silent majority. And around the country, for that matter, around the world, yeah, he has tremendous support. But also, he's someone that gets tremendous criticism. But I do believe his chances are excellent for being reelected.
Are you a personal friend? You had mentioned that I know you've been to Mar-a-Lago, and you mentioned the trumpettes and various fundraisers. Are you a good friend of the president? And maybe you can tell us some things about him that we don't know. What is he really like in person?
So we were acquaintances over the years. As I mentioned earlier, just in similar circles. We met each other a number of times, and we always said hello to each other and respectful. Although our family was in a consumer product business and his was real estate development, the circles intertwined occasionally, and he was always a gentleman. A favorite story of mine is we were at Mar-a-Lago one afternoon having lunch on the patio. We were invited, we're not members, we were invited by other guests, friends of ours, and we were sitting on one side of the patio. The president was on the other side of the patio with Barron. It was Barron's birthday, so the family and Barron was there. They were celebrating very casually a little birthday for Barron. And perpendicular to us and him was this table where this woman, well into her 80s, pushed her chair back and flipped the chair over. So all of a sudden, like instantly, she's upside down on the patio. He was the first one that jumped up. He was before anybody else could even like process what took place, he was already at her table as a total gentleman, helped her up, got her composed, called his doctors over to check her out to make sure she's okay, and was just an incredible individual. And it's like one of those stories that, without us saying it, would never be told. And he's the type that he doesn't even try to get those stories told. He's a very decent human being in so many respects that people don't know about.
Right, that's a great story. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's really wonderful to have met you both, and all the very best to you.
Very welcome. And again, I would say that we consider this to be a slice of heaven, and we're privileged to be here. And we truly are here to want to contribute to the relations of our countries and complement what has already been done.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.